tell us about the Kickstarter campaign? What were your ideas going into launching it? What do you think made it so successful? Do you felt you did it too soon, too late? Any thoughts on that?
Well, I don't think that we did the Kickstarter campaign at the wrong time. Obviously, you could say if we were farther along in production, then they would have come out sooner, but we needed the Kickstarter in order to go into production. We needed the Kickstarter, especially to figure out, the additional features or changes we were going to make. So in that way, it's like it started whenever it was going to start, and that start was the Kickstarter campaign in order to actually get the ball rolling on the project. What's kind of funny is that we spent a lot of time discussing the rewards and what the different levels would be other than the camera, because we weren't sure going in that people would buy up all the cameras, because it's a significant investment on a Kickstarter level. Most campaigns, the average donation is much, much smaller than on our campaign. We have one of the highest average donations of any Kickstarter campaign. I think it was something like $700 was the average.
I think as a reward level, that the $2,500 reward level being the highest number of rewards or close to it that we have, I think that had not been done before on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
There had been a lot of things that made more money overall, but the actual reward level was very high.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was just sort of funny because, we spent a lot of time arguing, whether t-shirts should be 40 or 35, but really at the end of the day, what it came down to was whether people wanted the cameras or not. Like, the smaller things, we appreciate people's support, but we sort of gamed our campaign in that we will make our goal if we sell out of cameras. And we're only selling 100, so if we don't sell out, then there's sort of really can't be that much of a market for the product to begin with. And so we kind of, you can never know going in whether something's going to be successful or not in that way. I don't think we anticipated that it would go as fast as it did. We anticipated having to spend the whole month actually, working to get people's attention, and that didn't happen because, by the time we launched it like on Monday afternoon, I think, and then by Tuesday morning when we came in, the original goal was already met, and at the end of that day, all the cameras were sold out. So it went very quickly, and I think that that's something that is unique to our campaign, but doesn't have to be. We were creating, mathematically a model that would mean if people bought enough of the product, then we would meet the goal and actually have the ability to produce that. I think one of the smarter things that we did was cap the product. It's very flashy now to get millions of dollars on Kickstarter, but the thing is, if you're trying to raise 10,000 or even 100,000 and you make 10 million, your business has changed significantly. There's taxes involved, there's different manufacturing costs involved, there's a whole, hundreds of thousands of customers that instead of 100 customers that you have to deliver to. One of the reasons we've been able to have personal relationships with our backers is because we had a much smaller number of backers, and people were upset that we didn't add more cameras, but we wanted to make sure that it was a small group, that we would be able to deliver, that it wasn't going to become out of control. And a lot of the other tech projects that are out there have gotten out of control, and that's why they're having problems with delivering, because they anticipated barely making their goal, ended up making millions, and were not ready for this. And I think that when you're planning a Kickstarter campaign, you really have to look through all of these possible outcomes, and you have to understand, if I make this much money on Kickstarter, this is what it translates into business-wise. And Kickstarter is a great thing, but I think that there's very little accountability in who can put up a Kickstarter and what sort of business strategy or any kind of pre-planning they've had to do in order to put that Kickstarter up. And I think that some people just get massively overwhelmed because they don't know what they're in for.
Yeah. I donated to a keyboard project on Kickstarter, and the guy really misunderstood what it was going to take to make his electronics project, his technology project, and he made just barely over his goal, and he has now sold his his investments and put all of his life savings into the project on top of that money, and is still probably not going to be able to deliver it, and it's kind of ruined him financially, and it's a problem that Kickstarter is not like a bank. They don't ask you for your business plan. They don't ask you for your market research. They don't ask you for any of that kind of stuff. They leave all that up to you, which is a little dangerous for investing. And as investors or as backers, it's a little dangerous for backers.
Yeah, I think they also used to be more strict about the number of projects that they would take on at any given time. And this, it's hard for me to tell because Kickstarter, they don't advertise every single campaign on their site. They make it so that you can see, recently funded or popular or staff picks, but it's unclear as to what the ratio is between stuff that you'll see on their homepage and how many actual Kickstarter campaigns there are. But, when we first, applied for a Kickstarter campaign was something like November, even though we launched it in March. We had it approved and ready to go in November. And at that time, you were seeing, fewer film projects or fewer similar film projects. So they were sort of curating what projects were acceptable and which were not. And more particularly on their site itself, you didn't have 50 music videos at the same time that they were showing. They would show one music video, one documentary about this, one longer documentary about this. The projects were not competing with each other so much. And I think that's part of a big problem now too. It's sort of the novelty of Kickstarter has worn off. And I think now you see fewer projects going through because people are more hip to what it takes to actually make one of these products happen.